The proposed revision of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws identifies 6 values centering in love and inseparable from each other. On the 5th Sunday of the season, we call to mind the 5th such value, generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Good morning. I'm Barbara Martin, she, her, hers, your celebrant association for the morning.
And I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister to this congregation.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Our church is located on land that has been home to various peoples in the last 12,000 years, including at the beginning of European encroachment, the Iowa, Sac, and Meskwaki. These lands were also known to the giant ground sloth, now extinct. As we enter this space, the ghosts of humans and other animals past, are among us. Let us recommit to understanding the history of the land that it occupies and to owning our past, our part in the past, and the work of education, reparation, and healing for all species.
We covenant to associate ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful to one another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
This bond of union is reiterated in our mission to grow ethically and spiritually, serve justly, and to love radically.
It's a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone.
Today is the 5th Sunday of autumn. The hunter's moon is waxing gibbous and will be full next Saturday night. Tomorrow is the last day of Navaratri, a 9-day festival in the Hindu faith that celebrates the goddess Durga.
A special welcome to our visitors. If you're here with children, feel free to keep them seated with you or take advantage of our We Worship space in the back of the auditorium sanctuary where you and your child may play with toys and books. And please silence your cell phones during the service. And if you're joining us via Zoom, please make sure your mics are muted throughout the service.
Our connection circles are small groups that gather to explore themes and build relationships. It's a key way that we live out our mission to grow ethically and spiritually. If you're not in one of these groups, we do urge you to sign up and become part of a group. There's a QR code on the back of your order of service that you can check into.
We begin with the lighting of our chalice.
Please say with me the unison chalice lighting words from Cynthia Landrum. Flame of our faith, call us into the community of love and justice this morning and every morning. Our opening hymn is 1000 in the Teal Book. Morning has come. Please rise as you are willing and able.
The light of hope still shines. Good morning. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I am this church's Congregational Life and Faith Formation Coordinator.
And I'm still Meredith Garmon.
Membership in this community means so much to so many. This is a place where we grow with one another ethically and spiritually. This is a place where we commit to serve our world and one another more justly. This is a place which calls us to love radically. Each time we draw our circle wider by one person, we live into our mission and values.
The membership affirmation is an occasion for all our members to renew the vows of membership. For like anything, church membership has meaning to the degree that we commit to it. And so to take a moment to say out loud that we are members, to embrace together some words that point in the direction of growing, deepening our faith, is helpful and encouraging. To be a member here is to enter into the denominational covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Association, as well as the bond of union and the mission of this congregation. To be a member here is to assume an aspiration for the 4 P's of membership. Especially recognize and welcome the new members, affirming the vows of membership for the first time. And so I'll call the names of the people who have joined since we last recognized new members. And if I call your name, if you're here, come on up and stand with Birch and me. Satish Adepu, Sue Clark, Elizabeth Williams. Come on up.
I invite all of our members to participate with me in the words of the membership affirmation. Those who are new, those who have been committed members for decades, and all members in between. To our visitors, guests, and friends with us today, we thank you for being here with us. We are honored to have your witnessing presence for this act of commitment and recommitment of our members here. There is a half sheet in the order of service that has the words of our membership affirmation. Will all members now stand in body or spirit and respond with the words indicated on that yellow insert? Do you enter into covenant as a Unitarian Universalist?
I enter into
And aspire to live by the denominational covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Association as set forth in its Article 2 bylaws.
Do you enter into covenant as a member of this First Unitarian Church of Des Moines?
I commit myself in covenant with all members of First Unitarian Church of Des Moines to associate ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful one to another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world. Is our bond of union. I commit myself to our mission to grow ethically and spiritually, serve justly, and love radically. You are entrusted with the authority to decide by your votes who shall be your officers, your minister, what your budget will be, and whether to adopt congregational resolutions. With this authority come aspirations of membership. Thank you. Please be seated.
We have a flower for each new member. For us, this flower is a symbol of individual beauty in the midst of a welcoming and nurturing community, and also a symbol of the blooming possibilities for us when we come together to be a faith community of memory and hope. We also have a document for our new members, affirming our commitment to their support. That's for you.
Our newest members have joined with you today in affirming the covenants of membership. Let us honor them with the congregational pledge on the back of the insert we just read. Say it with me. We, the members of First Unitarian Church, welcome you to our covenant and our shared journey to grow, serve, and love. We welcome your contributions, for through our common effort, may nurture our spirits and help heal the world. In gratitude, we accept the unique gifts you bring to our beloved community and your pledge of your presence, your participation, your Unitarian Universalist practice, and your partnership unity. We pledge to honor you, your families, with friendship, goodwill, and respect. After the service, please heartily greet our new members, Elizabeth, with the right hand of fellowship and welcome. Our two new members who could not join us today, Satish Edipu and Sue Clark. Welcome them when you see them in our halls. And now let us make an exception to our practice of not applauding during worship and put our hands together in appreciation of our new member. Our story for all ages this morning is Ani and the Tree Huggers, told by Janine Atkins. Ani set down the basket of nuts she'd been gathering and sat beneath her favorite tree. Every day, at least once, she leaned gratefully against its thick, rough trunk. Ani crushed a red berry to make a spot on her forehead, like her mother's. She was weaving grass around her ankle like the silver bracelets married women wore, when she heard rumbling and roaring. It was louder than the thunder that seemed like the stormy voice of the snow-capped mountains. As the grinding and gnashing grew louder, Ani sprang up. She knocked over her basket of nuts as she ran toward home. Her mother was not in the hut or in the yard. Her father and the other men were in a distant field cutting stalks of rice. Ani ran to the river and found her mother filling a jug with water. Heard from the what he said. Everyone turned and person in the men to take fruits. Ani frowned, but the person who's been here have all from the city will from the forest have paper. That's the village. The rumbling. Ani ran toward the place that had just turned. She sped past the rice fields. Mother and the other women their baskets and pots behind her. They stopped when they stopped. Several men there swung axes. Namaste, Ani and the women said to the men, and put their hands together and bowed their heads. The men continued to swing their axes at the stems of small trees. The metal first broke bark, the gashes grew wider. One man pushed a broken tree and thudded to the ground. His mother covered her mouth in horror. Kalwati cried. A man pulled the chain of a. The grinding noise was still, but Kalwati loudly. The trees give us their fruit and berries. Their wood provides our houses, our plows, our hoes. The roots keep the land from sliding when the heavy winds and rain. A tree and Kalwati ran over the women called. Kalwati grew. The man pushed, tumbled. Out of the way. We use these fires. We need them to cook our food and warm our home. Another man waved a piece of paper and said, "We've got orders." Another man with an axe brushed Kalwati. He watched Ani's basket of nuts close to that she sat beneath every day. He ran toward him. "Come back," her mother called. Ani threw her arms around the tree. She pressed herself against it. The man and his axe were at her back. How easily the axe could pierce the bark. Her mother screamed. Ani heard her fear, but she pressed herself closer to the tree, close so that nothing could come between them. The bark scraped her cheek. She didn't look until the sounds of saws and the swinging of axes had stopped. The wind wound around the trees so that the leaves softly whooshed. And when she saw that all around her, women and children were hugging the trees too. The men then put down their axes and they were whispering among each other. One of them said, "Please, go home." "This is our home," said Kalwati. "We will give you 1,000 rupees just to leave," he replied. Ani thought about what 1,000 rupees might buy. A goat, so they wouldn't have to carry kindling on their backs. It could buy new scythes for cutting rice and enough tea and sugar to last everyone for years. Once again, Kalwati said, "No, we don't need 1,000 rupees. We need the trees." Ani and the women clasped their arms around the trees again. Ani didn't move until he heard the rumble of the trucks, first loud, then fainter. Rustling leaves and rattling branches again filled the forest with their music. Ani dropped her arms from the tree. Namaste. Peace was what they had wished for everyone who came and left. "What did you think you were doing?" Ani's mother asked. "I was so afraid." "I was afraid too," said Ani. Kalwati started dancing. Another woman bounced her baby along. Overhead, birds flew from tree to tree. Someone began to chant. Ani looked up at the great range of mountains off on the horizon and whispered a prayer to the goddess, mother of the world. The trees were safe for now. Everyone was safe. Children, kindergarten through 4th grade, are welcome to go to our classroom downstairs now. Whether you are new to this congregation or you have been coming for a long time, we will sing the children out with the children's benediction pasted in the back of your hymnal.
Neither of us is Sally Buckholt, but we are here to make sure you know all about an upcoming event we call FUMAF. I'm Heidi Lockman,
And I'm Dylan Q.
and we've been working with Les Bredesen, Sally Buckholt, and Karen Kramer, along with others, to plan the next FUMAF, our first Unitarian Music and Arts Festival.
This year, we're holding FUMAF in November as a fall festival. We'll have an evening of live musical performances from fellow congregants, alongside an art show and sale, plus children's activities and a potluck.
Mark your calendars now and plan to come to church on the first Sunday of November, November 4th. Bring a dish to share and an appetite for the 5 o'clock potluck, one of the best ways to connect with fellow UUs.
Then plan to stay for the entertainment and artwork auction starting at 5:45 p.m.
This one-of-a-kind artwork by the late Florence Freddie will be under wraps until the night of FUMAF. However, you can get a sneak peek of several other artworks right after the service. They're already hanging in Griffin Hall. Come see and bid on over 30 different items from at least a dozen artists, all donated by members to support our church. There will be silent and live auction items of many artistic formats, including paintings, photos, fabric art, and full-size quilts. Truly something for everyone.
There are plenty of opportunities to participate in this event. You can see Liz or us after the service to let us know if you'd like to donate art or volunteer. In particular, we do need help with setup and cleanup, running the auction, taking payments, and leading a church children's art activity, as well as a couple of other items. So we would really appreciate anyone who would be interested in volunteering for this event.
We'll have a sign-up sheet during the coffee hour after the service. To recap, plan now to join us on Saturday, November 4th at 5 p.m. for FUMAF. You can find these small papers out in the gathering space to take with you and pin to your fridge. Whether you're a creator, a performer, or just a lover of the arts, our first Unitarian Music and Arts Festival is for you.
You will not want to miss this lively gathering of artists and musicians from our very own church community.
Thank you.
Please join me in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer. Dear ground of being, reality of joy and pain. There is in each of us what we might call evil, though perhaps we will understand ourselves and others better if we call it a drive for power, control, and dominance. And power can be a force to facilitate the flourishing of all beings, all people, and all species. But when wedded to control and dominance, we may steal and pillage, murder and torture, terrorize and traumatize in the pursuit of more power, more control, and more dominance. For all the living creatures, humans and other animals, plants, and all life, our hearts cry out. Even in the midst of great suffering, there is beauty and wonder. Today, let us take this moment to particularly call to mind beauty and wonder of this world and of each other. In Israel, the sunset from the cliff over Maktesh Ramon makes hearts soar. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lola Ya Bonobo, a sanctuary for orphaned bonobos, manifests our capacity for compassionate coexistence. In Uganda, Wenzori Mountains, often called the Mountains of the Moon, fill hearts with awe and beauty. In Afghanistan, the city of Balkh, one of the oldest cities in the world, displays still a grandeur that led Marco Polo to call it a noble and great city. In Algeria, at the Atakor volcanic field, lava flows and 450 individual vents create a spectacular scenery. In Iraq, the Euphrates River is lined with lush date palm groves. In Benin, at Lake Nakogi, birdwatchers can catch a glimpse of the African openbill. In Ghana, in Kakum National Park, a biodiverse rainforest reserve swells with life. In Mali, Mount Hambori rises like a wall of ochre-hued stone. In Tunisia, there is Hammamet, a small fishing town surrounded by lemon groves. In Burkina Faso, in the city of Banfora, hippos may be spotted by the Carfiguela waterfalls. In Mozambique, the Gorgongosa National Park provides shelter to species found nowhere else. Drawing strength from such inspiration, may we learn how to set down our swords of control and dominance. May peace wander in and out of each crevice, every tree limb, whispering in the wind, "Let us be free from war." May tenderness plant herself in the most unlikely places, sprouting dainty flowers and hearty vines, exotic plants, all beautifully sharing this same earth, same water, same sun and moon. May abundant love rain down upon the people, creating a ripple effect changing the world. All people may live in freedom, peace, and without the threat of war. May we be the active agents of making it so. May we be a people who delight in what is good, confront what is cruel, and heal what is broken. We hold in our hearts today, especially those of our own church community. Barb?
I'm Barb Glass, a member of the pastoral care team. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. As a community of human hands, human hearts, inclusive also of beloved non-human animals among us, we come together to share our laughter and our tears and to bear witness and minister to one another as we struggle with life's joys and life's sorrows. Barb Klubel's husband, Jan Speck, has been diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a bone cancer. For several weeks, they have been back and forth between Des Moines and the University of Iowa Hospital for testing and treatment, and they will continue for at least 6 months. Your healing thoughts would be appreciated, as would cards to their home address. No phone calls or emails, please. Jim Bush is in the hospital with 4 fractured ribs after a fall. He will be going to a rehab facility when dismissed from the hospital. He's not ready for visitors, but would welcome cards of cheer. His sister is here to help and will deliver cards from his home to him. Alma Hatfield is awaiting knee replacement around Thanksgiving and is homebound until then. She has a fair amount of pain that seems mostly relieved by visitors. If you can't visit, give her a call of support. Just a reminder that the celebration of life for Michael Lauer will be here on Saturday, November 11th at 1 p.m. David Whitkey's younger brother, Randy, died recently in Portland, Oregon. Randy was not only Dave's brother, but also a good friend and colleague for many years in the newsroom of the Des Moines Register. Dave has now lost both his brothers within a period of 3 months. It is with both joy and sorrow that the McClurkins, Devin, Jean, and Olson, announced that they are going to be moving to Boston in November. Jean has been offered a job at Fenway Health, a federally qualified health center focused on all LGBTQI+ and BIPOC populations. I'm sorry, I don't know what those initials stand for, and somebody's going to have to fill me in on that. Thank you. She will be leading their behavioral health department. This move will bring them closer to Jean's family, but take them away from Devon, so there will be lots of visits back to Iowa. The McClurkins want to thank First Unitarian for welcoming them 7 years ago and Olson 5 years ago. They have learned and grown from you and appreciate all you do. If you need contact information, please speak to Laura Berardi or any member of the pastoral care team. Let us share together now the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. You may call the name out loud or type it into the chat. As we share these names, may the love of this community hold them all. Mike. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May the work of our hands and hearts support, aid, and comfort all those who hunger, who thirst, who cry out for justice, who yearn for peace. May we never look away when we are needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. May those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. We light 3 candles. One for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, one for those shared in writing, and one for those held silently among us.
Contributions to our Faith in Action partners by members and friends may be made by scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. This year's partners are Free Store, which helps provide household items to families recovering from domestic violence and other trauma, and the Iowa Transmutual Aid Fund, which financially supports trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse Iowans as they access gender-affirming care. Generosity is a central value for Unitarian Universalists. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Our morning offering expresses our generosity as well as our gratitude. In gratitude we give, and in gratitude we receive. Thank you, Bruce. In William Golding's 1954 novel, The Lord of the Flies, a plane goes down near a deserted island in the Pacific. The only survivors are some British schoolboys who can't believe their good fortune. It's as if they've just crash landed in one of their adventure books. Nothing but beach and shells and water for miles. And better yet, no grown-ups. On the very first day, the boys institute a democracy of sorts. One boy, Ralph, is elected to be the group's leader. Athletic, charismatic, and handsome, he's the golden boy of the bunch. Ralph's game plan is simple. Have fun, survive, make smoke signals for passing ships. Now, number one is a success. The other is not so much. Most of the boys are more interested in feasting and frolicking than in tending the fire. Jack, the redhead, develops a passion for hunting pigs, and as time progresses, he and his friends grow increasingly reckless. And when a ship does finally pass in the distance, they've abandoned their post at the fire. You're breaking the rules, Ralph accuses angrily. Jack shrugs. Who cares? The rules are the only thing we've got. When night falls, the boys are gripped by terror, fearful of the beast that they believe is lurking on the island. In reality, the only beast is inside them. Before long, they've begun painting their faces and casting off their clothes, and they develop overpowering urges to pinch, to kick, to bite. Of all the boys, only one manages to keep a cool head. Piggy, as the others call him, because he's pudgier than the rest. He's asthmatic, and he wears glasses, and he can't swim. Piggy is the voice of reason, to which nobody listens. What are we, he wonders mournfully, savages? Weeks pass. Then one day, a British naval officer comes ashore. The island is now a smoldering wasteland, and 3 of the children, including Piggy, are dead. I should have thought, the officer reproaches them, that a pack of British boys would have been able to put up a better show than that. Ralph, the leader of the once proper and well-behaved band of boys, bursts into tears. Golding writes, Ralph wept for the end of innocence, the darkness of man's heart.
So, William Golding lied to you. He did. He lied to us. It may seem strange to say that a work of fiction is a lie, but just as truth may be conveyed in the guise of fiction, so may falsehood. Golding's 1954 novel, The Lord of the Flies, purveyed a lie. The Lord of the Flies, of which Barb has provided us a brief summary, sold tens of millions of copies. It's been translated into more than 30 languages and hailed as one of the classics of the 20th century. Every year, more high schoolers are assigned to read the book. The story is meant to illustrate, as Golding wrote in his letter to his publisher, that even if we start with a clean slate, our nature compels us to make a muck of it. Man produces evil as a bee produces honey. That's the lie. We aren't such a bad species. The book was written for a readership reeling from the atrocities of World War II, asking themselves how Auschwitz could have happened. The idea that there's a Nazi hiding in each of us, just waiting for the chance to come out, was grim, but at least it seemed to make sense of events that had happened. William Golding was an unhappy man, an alcoholic, prone to depression, a man unable to take the trouble to spell acquaintances' names correctly. Biologist and primatologist Franz de Waal says there is not a shred of evidence that this is what children left to their own devices will do. And Franz de Waal had not then heard about the real case of shipwrecked boys on a deserted island. It turns out there is a real such story. And while millions have read William Golding's fable, almost no one knew about the true story until more than 50 years after it happened, when Rutger Bregman, researching his book that came out in Dutch in 2019, dug it up and tracked down the now elderly survivors. In June 1965, Luke, Sion, Fatai, Kolo, Tavita, and Mano, 6 boys, ages 13 to 16, all pupils at St. Andrews, a strict Anglican boarding school on the South Pacific island of Tonga, were bored. They longed for adventure instead of school assignments. They came up with a plan to escape to Fiji, some 800 kilometers away, or maybe all the way to New Zealand. The boys stole a 7.3-meter boat from a fisherman that they all disliked. They brought 2 sacks of bananas, a few coconuts, and a small gas burner. And that was pretty much it. No map, no compass. The first night, a bit of weather came up. They hoisted the sail, which the wind properly tore to shreds. And then the rudder broke. For 8 days they drifted without water other than what rainwater they could collect in the coconut shells, which they shared equally, each taking a sip in the morning and another in the evening. And on the 8th day, a miracle. They spotted a small island, a hulking mass of rock jutting up more than 300 meters out of the ocean. The boys had stumbled upon Ata, an uninhabited island, 450 acres in size. A New York Times article reported in 2021 that Ata had once been home to about 350 people, but in 1863, British slave traders had kidnapped about 150 of them, and the Tongan king relocated the rest to another island where they would be protected. By the time that our lads from Tonga landed there, the island had been deserted for over 100 years. Today, it is considered uninhabitable. At first, the boys lived off raw fish, coconuts, and birds' eggs. After about 3 months, they found the ruins of a village, and their fortunes improved. Amid the rubble, they discovered a machete, domesticated taro plants, a flock of chickens descended from the ones left behind by the previous inhabitants. For 15 months, the boys were on that island, a year and a quarter, before they caught the attention of a passing fishing trawler. The captain that rescued them wrote that by the time we arrived, the boys had set up a small commune with a food garden, hollowed out tree trunks to store rainwater, a gymnasium with curious weights, a badminton court, chicken pens, and a permanent fire, all from handiwork, an old knife blade, and much determination. Fatai, after countless failed attempts, had managed to produce a spark using 2 sticks. And while the boys in the make-believe Lord of the Flies come to blows over the fire, those in the real-life Lord of the Flies tended their flame, so it never went out for more than a year they did. The kids agreed to work in teams of 2, drawing up a strict roster for garden, kitchen, and guard duty. Sometimes they quarreled, but whenever that happened, they solved it by imposing a timeout. The squabblers would go to opposite ends of the island to cool their tempers, and after 4 hours or so, Mano later remembered, we'd bring them back together and we'd say, okay, now apologize. That's how we stayed friends. Their days began and ended with song and prayer. Kolo fashioned a makeshift guitar from a piece of driftwood, half a coconut shell, and 6 steel wires salvaged from their wrecked boat, and he played it to help lift their spirits. One day, Fatai slipped and fell off a cliff and broke his leg. The other boys picked their way down after him, then helped him back up to the top. They set his leg using sticks and leaves, and the leg healed perfectly. Says Meredith Garmon, the real Lord of the Flies is a story about friendship, cooperation, and human resilience. In the delayed discovery of this story, the New York Times wrote, the 6 boys flourished in their spontaneous community, suggesting that cooperation, not conflict, is an integral feature of human nature. So William Golding lied to us. Why, then, has his novel seemed to so many to be so realistic? In World War II, German planes dropped 80,000 bombs on London alone. 40,000 people in the UK were killed, and 1 million buildings were damaged or destroyed. Germany's war planners were sure that this would break the British will to resist, that there would be a general social collapse. The British, famously, kept calm and carried on. As the tide of war turned, the Allies, refusing to learn from the British experience, planned a similar civilian bombing campaign against Germany. Then they too fell into the delusion that this would break their enemy's will to resist. Terrible idea. Crisis brings out not the worst in people, but the best. Analyses after the war indicated that Allied bombing strengthened the German wartime economy, thereby prolonging the war. Between 1940 and 1944, they found that German tank production had multiplied by a factor of 9 and of fighter jets by a factor of 14. The bombs boosted solidarity, and solidarity improved efficiency. Humans are made to pull together and help each other out. The movie Titanic shows people blinded by panic, except for the string quartet. But the movie was not accurate about that. In fact, the evacuation was quite orderly. Or take September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. As the Twin Towers burned, thousands of people descended the stairs calmly, even though they knew their lives were in danger. They stepped aside for firefighters and the injured. Most people, most of the time, are basically decent. Maybe the worst thing about us is what a hard time we have believing that. Why do we have such a hard time believing the truth that we are basically decent, that we care for others and are, when circumstances require, ready to enact caring with considerable courage? I will explore that after our interlude. So why do we have a hard time believing the truth about how basically sociable and cooperative we are? One factor for why it's hard for us to believe in one another's basic virtue is this. The way that we got to be such a cooperative species was by carefully monitoring non-cooperation when it pops up. Cooperative pro-social behavior doesn't grab our attention very much. Our brains are wired to focus on antisocial behavior so that we can bring social forces to bear to bring the offender back in line. It's like our attraction to sugar, which was functional when sugar was scarce and we needed to have a preference for riper fruit. But now that we can mass produce sugar, our sweet tooths are killing us. Focus on antisocial behavior was a brilliant adaptation when it was a rare thing to see antisocial behavior. But now that we have mass media inundating us with stories of people doing bad things, which the media does because people doing normal, ordinary, everyday good things isn't very interesting. It doesn't sell newspapers, it doesn't attract eyeballs or grab the attention of brains that have been wired to attend to misbehavior. Functional, normally cooperative people are boring to watch, which is rule number one for any producer of a reality TV show. Hence, my prayer and blessing for all of you is, may your life be one that, if it were a reality TV show, would have terrible ratings. We got to be the highly cooperative, hypersocial animals that we are by paying attention to rare, uncooperative actions. But then we developed media that overloads us with stories that we are wired to pay attention to. Thus, we end up with the misimpression that people are usually only out for their own narrow self-interests, that people are no darn good. As Rutger Bregman says, even after researchers presented their subjects with hard data about strangers returning lost wallets, or the fact that the majority of the population doesn't cheat or steal, most subjects did not view humanity in a more positive light. In particular, Bregman notes, catastrophes bring out the best in people. I know of no other sociological finding that is backed by so much solid evidence that is so blithely ignored. The picture we are fed by the media is consistently the opposite of what happens when disaster strikes. That's one factor in why William Golding's novel seemed to so many to be realistic. A second factor is this: power tends to corrupt. Lord Acton was right about that one. We are basically decent, but power does tend to corrupt us. It starts in little ways, mild but telling. In one study, subjects were put in teams of 3 and given a task to do together. And the researchers would randomly pick one of the 3 and say, "You be the leader," randomly selected. As the team of 3 went about their task, the researchers brought them a snack. A plate of 5 cookies. 5 cookies for 3 people. One of the cookies would typically be left on the plate as per etiquette that inhibits taking the last one. That leaves 4 cookies for 3 people. They all got one, and then one of them takes a second. What the study found is that it was almost always the person randomly selected as the designated leader who took the second cookie. In another study, subjects were assigned a car and told to drive it around the block. Some subjects were randomly assigned a beat-up Mitsubishi or a Ford Pinto, while others were assigned to drive a high-end late-model BMW or Mercedes. As they approached the crosswalk, a pedestrian would step off the curb. All the drivers of the clunker cars stopped and let the pedestrian go by. The drivers of the fancy cars, however, 45% of the time failed to stop for the pedestrian. Psychologist Dr. Keltner calls it acquired sociopathy. Even a tiny bit of power and we feel like taking that extra cookie. Why are we like that? At heart, we're such team players that we adapt to the role we find ourselves in. even adopting some traits unconsciously. If you're assigned the role of an important person, then you'll act like an important person, and important people don't have time to wait for pedestrians. We're funny that way. We are not such a bad species, but we are funny. People often rise to power by being very friendly, attentive, warm, caring, and helpful, and then they get into power, and it's like brain damage. It transpires that people in power display the same tendencies. They literally act like someone with brain damage. Not only are they more impulsive, self-centered, reckless, arrogant, and rude, they become more likely to cheat on their spouses, less attentive to other people, less interested in others' perspectives. They're also more shameless, often failing to manifest the one facial phenomena that makes human beings unique among primates. They don't blush. Neurological brain scans find that a sense of power disrupts what is known as mirroring, a mental process which plays a key role in empathy. Ordinarily, we mirror all the time. Someone else laughs, you laugh too. Someone yawns, so do you. But powerful individuals mirror much less. It's almost as if they no longer feel connected to their fellow human beings, as if they've come unplugged. If we are conscious of this tendency, we can counteract it. Many of us have had experience with that boss who was the exception to this tendency, who remained thoughtful and considerate of others even after ascending to power. So it can be counteracted. When it isn't counteracted, those suffering from acquired sociopathy assume that others are as self-centered and uncooperative as they have become. Having come unplugged, they forget how cooperative and decent most people are. The dynamic during disasters is almost always the same. Adversity strikes, there's a wave of spontaneous cooperation in response, then the authorities panic and unleash a second disaster. Emergency responders don't respond believing there's too much chaos to go in, or armed authorities open fire on peaceful people. Rebecca Solnit wrote about the aftermath of the 2005 Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. She wrote, "My own impression is that elite panic comes from powerful people who see all humanity in their own image." And Bregman adds, "Dictators and despots, governors and generals, they all too often resort to brute force to prevent scenarios that exist only in their own heads, on the assumption that the average Joe is ruled by self-interest just like them. People in power tend to purvey the idea that the Lord of the Flies is realistic. Between our sweet tooth for bad news and the projected acquired sociopathy of the powerful, we are apt to become convinced that we are a terrible species. As filmmaker Richard Curtis observed, "If you make a film about a man kidnapping a woman and chaining her to a radiator for 5 years, something that has happened probably once in history, it's called searingly realistic analysis of society. If I make a film like Love Actually, which is about people falling in love, and there are about 1 million people falling in love in Britain today, it's called a sentimental presentation of an unrealistic world." Sentimental? I suppose you could say so, but unrealistic? Not at all. So I will leave you then with Hugh Grant's voiceover words at the opening of Curtis's film, Love Actually. "When I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinion's starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed, but I don't see that. It seems to me love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around. Not such a bad species. Amen.
Please join us in our final hymn, 1008. Rise as you are willing and able. Please say with me our unison chalice extinguishing words in your program. Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in our unending quest for dignity, justice, and love.
May you leave this place knowing that you and those around you are good, and that you are loved, and stay safe until we are together again. Go in peace.